I can't hear you. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, whom he has redeemed from the hand of the enemy. I can't hear you. This psalm is believed to have been written to the exiles from Babylon who had now returned to Jerusalem. And it is a call to them to give their great deliverer, Yahweh, Jehovah, to give him his due praise. The Jewish state had been newly founded again by the release of these Jews from exile, and it is an inducement for them to return home. After 3 generations of being in a strange land, they now had been delivered and brought back to their homeland, where instruction is given them to open up their... So in the first group was in verses 4 through 9. These were those who were perishing from hunger and thirst. And the Lord brought them from their weariness to rest. Look at their need in verses 4 and 5. They wandered in the wilderness in a desolate way, and they found no city to dwell in. Hungry and thirsty, their soul fainted in them. They were wanderers in the wilderness, just like those who had lost their way and who were now perplexed and wearied. They had no clue as to what direction they should go, and they had no guide to show them the way out. So they were left to their own abilities. They were left to their own devices, which only carried them further and further into the wilderness. Are you listening to me? And to the very thing they were trying to get out of, their own abilities and devices were taking them further and further into that wilderness. Moved them to take action. And what was the action? The action was to pray in verses 6 and 7. Then, I like the transition, then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them out of their distresses. They cried in their trouble, and that word trouble is translated a tight place. It's a word that means in a tight place. And they were indeed in a tight place, for they were in the wilderness. They were in a tight place. They were totally lost. They were in a tight place. They were without any nourishment, which meant they were at their demise was near. But fortunately for them, they exercised the discipline of prayer when they recognized they were in a tight place. And how many of you ever been in a tight place? That ain't enough of you. The rest of y'all, I don't know where y'all living, but if you living down here, you may not admit it, but you done been there. Amen. You ought to say so, at least that. See, the tight place was they were extremely uncomfortable, and the tight place where you have no room to stretch. You feel hemmed in and boxed in. It's that place that seems that it's going to cause your demise. But too many Christians there, when you get in tight places, I know why some of you didn't raise your hand, because when you get in tight places, you like many other folk who allowing the tight place to be your ruin. You allow the tight place to run roughshod over your life and sap all of your vitality and all of your spirituality. It drains your hope and clouds your faith because you're in this tight place. And you end up collapsing and withering in the wilderness of life because of your failure to cry out to the Lord. Now, people do cry out, but they cry to themselves or they cry to other people who can't help them. Ain't no need of a tight place person calling to another person who in their own tight place. They can't help them at all. You need to cry out to the Lord. I want you to know this morning, if you don't get nothing else, that if you've ever been in that tight place and called on the name of the Lord, it's important to know that his ears always turn toward this place we call home. His ears always listening for the faintest cry from one of his children. And his good news is that when you call on him, he'll come and see about you. I promise you that he will. He'll bring to pass your deliverance.